that? That's what an estimated 500 horsepower sounds like. X gon' give it to you. How about that? That's a premium Bang & Olufsen sound system with 18 speakers and a Biosonic sound experience.
Acura wins Daytona.
And that's our legacy. You ready to be a part of it? X gon' give it to you. Unlock the energy of the all-electric ZDX Type S. Order now at Acura.com.
WWE Universe, the D-Lew Podcast is now a brand affiliate of WWE Shop with Fanatics. Get all of your latest merchandise from your favorite WWE superstars and wear them proud. So if it's CM Punk, the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes, L.A. Knight, the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns, or legends like The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Bret the Hitman Hart, again, you can get all of your favorite merchandise over at wrestling.thedlewpodcast.com. Again, that's wrestling.thedlewpodcast.com to get all of your favorite merchandise at WWE Shop with Fanatics. This podcast is a Believe Network and Lou Siete production. Welcome to another edition of the D-Lew Podcast, brought to you by Believe Network. I'm your host, Derrick T. Lewis, and I hope you all are having a fantastic week. As for me, I'm getting ready for this weekend's Monster Factory on 11 event that we have Saturday afternoon. Of course, you can get your tickets at monsterfactory.org. Of course, you can show up the day of the show and get your tickets at the door. Bell time is at 4 p.m., just to let you guys know. But this episode, this week, I have the honor and privilege of speaking with a young lady right now who is working right now at the brand new all-women's promotion, Belle to Belle, as a commentator, as a ring announcer, as a backstage interviewer. But she also has her foot in the world of professional wrestling and other companies, but also she has her foot in the fashion world. She worked Fashion Week in New York City. She was the body painter for Cirque du Soleil, and we talk about all aspects of her life and career. And let's not wait any longer. My interview with Jem Martel starts right now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce a commentator, a ring announcer, a backstage interviewer. She does so many other things in the world of entertainment, but, her first love is the world of professional wrestling. You could see her at the new all-women's promotion, Belle to Belle, which is ran by Missy Sampson. It's a women's promotion ran by women. The one and only Jem Martel. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Hello, I am so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right. Like I said, the pleasure is all mine. I appreciate you, stopping, taking the time out of your schedule, to come on to the D-Lew Podcast to talk about everything you have going on. We will talk about Belle to Belle, further down in the interview, but I want to talk about when you were 11, you got into the theater space with props and pyrotechnics. Let's talk about that for a second. How did you get into that?
Yeah. So like many things in my life, it was certainly unexpected. So the way that I got into it was a little sneaky. My parents, I was raised by very hippie parents that were really big on like your work ethic and things like that. So when we turned 11, we had to go get a volunteer job of some sort. My one older brother worked in food service in a hospital, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I knew I didn't want to do that. So I had been scouring for, odd jobs here and there that were volunteer. And I saw that a theater company that was local needed some backstage help. And I was like, wow, that sounds great in comparison to doing food service in the hospital.
Right.
I got in contact with them, and they were in Red Bank, New Jersey. They were called RTG, and it was like one of the really big influences of my very young life. Mm-hmm. I got in, they let me start on props. And then very shortly after that, they let me do the fog machine. And then I was doing the dry ice fog machine. Then they started letting me do the flash pods. They trusted me with a lot for my age. I was always very into doing things with my hands and creating and things like that. And from there, I really like just got so into the theater that kind of, it really kind of took me on that theater journey. And then I was, theater kid in high school, and kind of all of that stuff comes together all these years later down the line to where we are today.
It's crazy how a lot of decisions that we make as kids really, in a way, shape us as adults, and some of the decisions that we do make. The theater aspect can be applied to professional wrestling, can be applied to music, can be applied to makeup, as we talk about as well. So it's really, I always say, when a child, has their mind on something that they really want to focus on, don't deter them from that. You know what I mean? Really
I
give
was
them that
lucky in a
encouragement. Right.
way. Like I had parents that were very, very accepting. They, whatever as long as you went to school and graduated, like they didn't even care that you got like great grades. They were just like, be a good person, don't get in trouble, don't get messed up in drugs and alcohol. But they were really supportive. And I mean, they drove me to that. We were in Central Jersey and Freehold, and that was in Red Bank. So it was about a half an hour. And they drove me like 3 or 4 times a week. And then on the weekends, like looking back on that was a lot of investment for them for me just to go be working backstage somewhere.
Now, was this, now let me ask you a question. Was this during the summer months, or was
This is all year long? All year long it went on. It was something that I was just really, really into it. But it kept me out of trouble. It kept me, in a group of people that was a pretty good group of people. And I, didn't get involved in drugs and alcohol throughout, like, the whole time I was in high school. I waited, I waited until I was an adult.
awesome?
But it was, like I said, it was great. And then I had so many other inspirations and things that I was able to master at such a young age. Costuming and sewing were things that I learned a little bit there. I learned from my mom as well. I was able to start to learn makeup. Got to do my first like bruises and stuff on people, and that got me into like the special effects makeup world. Prop building, which later down the line, like prop and set building comes into play when you're building deathmatch stuff. It's incredible how much of that now, when I look back, is still influential in my life today.
So let's take a trip back for a second. So you obviously had a love for the art, as far as makeup, costuming, and stage combat and singing, but we'll talk about the singing a little bit. So when you talk about prop building and dealing with theater, how did it go from as far as the pyrotechnics to the stage building and all these other things?
So one of the wonderful things about backstage for me, and then even going into my professional career, like again, like everything is just so interconnected. But just that matter of like helping out, working out, doing what needs to be done. So they needed somebody to do pyrotechnics. I was there. I had the time on my hands, and I had the capability. I was the person that was going to jump in and do that job. It was the same thing, it was just them getting together and like building sets and things like that was really interesting to me. So I was like, hey, can I come by and help? And they said, of course. And, then you learn to pick up the hammer and the nail or paint or, do whatever it might be that needed to be done. And it really turned out to, for me, it's like I was always that person that loved ring crew, right? Because it's a time where everybody that's there comes together to build the ring to make sure that the show can go on. It's kind of like that raising in the barn sort of, the thought, like the whole community comes together so that something great can be made. That is, to me, just super inspiring and wonderful, and something that I try to carry with me, in, my professional life, in the entertainment industry, anywhere that I can go. I am the person that will never say no if I think maybe I can help in some way.
Yeah, I mean, and even with me, as far as learning, when I got into wrestling and helping out, set up the ring, I didn't know anything about setting up a wrestling ring, prior to getting into the business, and just being able to pay, as they say, pay your dues. But I think in the sense when you were doing with set building, I think that was paying your dues too, because you asked, hey, can I come help? And when they see where you're willing to contribute and have no ego. You know what I mean? And just saying you're a very selfless person. So you know what? I'm going to help out to the greater good of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, it's even something like, I guess it goes like a little further than that. Because I think some people will say like, oh, well, I'll put my ego aside, I'll put my pride aside and help out for this. Like, I actually get jazzed by it. I don't know. I am
Right.
a dork that way. I love to see people working together, but that's again probably how I ended up in human resources in my professional life.
Right. No. And you need to be a people person in order to deal, especially when you're working in HR. I totally understand that. Now, you got gigs doing makeup for Fashion Week in New York City and body painting for Cirque du Soleil. Let's talk about this. I mean, this is incredible stuff. When I had an opportunity to, to get to know you prior to the interview, how were you able to get into that?
So it was I had an interesting divergence right around when I was 18 in my life. So I had a choice. I was doing stunt work. I was actively working at Six Flags in their stunt show. I was doing a couple of movies. And I also got offered a job working for MAC Cosmetics. So I had both of these interests and passions. And being a young person, I came from that place where we really needed to have that work ethic.
Right.
Going to work for MAC Cosmetics was something that I knew would provide me with an ability to take care of myself, to make my own money, to be able to have a car, have an apartment, and just be out on my own. So I went down that path rather than going down the starving artist or the starving actor person path. And that really, that was where my journey took me strictly kind of into makeup for almost 10 years. And I got to have just the most incredible experiences. I got to travel around the whole kind of Northeast region doing body painting for MAC Cosmetics. I did Fashion Week for about 5 years. I never got to be a head makeup artist at a show, but I did a ton of shows. I met a ton of famous people. None of that, like, again, you're still a little guy backstage. Like, it doesn't really amount to anything except for that cool experience that you had. I've always been terrible with like names and faces, and there were so many people that I met that I was like sitting there having a regular person conversation with, and they were like, oh, you didn't know that was so-and-so? And I'm like, oh my God, no, I had no idea. But like I said, that was just a really cool experience. I think in some ways, like I wish, obviously that was a little while ago. So I didn't, have a great I didn't have a cell phone with a camera on it or anything like that.
Right.
I wish I didn't, I have a handful of pictures from disposable cameras. We carried those all the time back then.
Back in the could we say is that back in the 20th century or early 21st? Yeah, I totally understand. We've come a long ways, haven't we?
Yes, but it was, like I said, I wish I had more pictures that time. So I think when you get into like these certain grooves in your life, there's part of you that just decides like, well, this is my life now. So it's like always going to be this way. So whatever, this isn't like a big deal anymore because it got to be such a regular occurrence. But yeah, and along with that, I got, the same thing. It was all through my work with MAC Cosmetics that I got hooked up into working with Cirque du Soleil. So I got, anytime they were in New York, we got to do some great fun body painting for them. I got to work with Boy George and Rosie O'Donnell when they did their musical Taboo. We had a wild opening night party with them that we did some fun stuff for. We had a bunch of installations at this event. It was very, very artsy. It was wild. But yeah, those were like some really wild times that you're like, wow, I can't believe that, like I've had these like such varied experiences.
Wow, I mean, as an actor too, and I could tell you that I mean, even with people that I've come across with that I've met, that I just would have never imagined as a kid that would ever happen. And I do cherish those moments. You have to sometimes pinch yourself and you're saying, this is my life. You know what I mean? So I totally get exactly what you're saying. But let's take a detour, so to speak, into what we both have in common, of the many things you and I have in common, and that is the world of professional wrestling. So at what age were you when you got hooked, so to speak? What was the promotion? What was the wrestler? And just how did you become a fan of professional wrestling?
So, like I said, my family was very hippie. So with that came very much anti-violence. So it was not like a big thing in my house to watch it.
Peace and love, right?
Yes, it was peace and love. Like that was a little too, like it was a little too much. But I was able to watch Glow like that. But I was tiny. when that was on TV.
Right.
So I was able to watch that with my dad. That was like my first, exposure to it. And I really loved those, those over the top characters. Obviously, the bright colors and the makeup and everything else is something that still holds with me today. But I think when I really was able, I spent a long time kind of hating wrestling. I will say that, like, there was a long period of time where I didn't like wrestling because I couldn't see myself in it. Throughout the Attitude Era and things like that, like I could never see myself in those women's shoes. So it was very difficult for me to I kind of resented it, and I just was like, man, I would love to do this if I was a guy, but then, I would say during those times, it was, people like Sherry Martel, Luna Vachon, like those are people that hooked me. Those are those people that Luna, her mix of her intensity of character and her intensity in the ring. Sherry was, once I really started watching, she was just managing. She wasn't really in the ring so much anymore. But then going back to watch her stuff, I'm like, man, like, if she were here today, like she would have had such an incredible long career. And it was just kind of a matter of the circumstances that she was kind of cut down a little early, but she still made the most of her time. She still got out there and everybody knew who she was. That was for sure. So those would be those people. And then like getting back into wrestling, I think when Asuka came over, I was hearing all these things and people are like, you should be watching NXT. There's like great things going on for women's wrestling right now. And I'm like, I don't think so. And then I finally sat down one night and watched it. And I was like, what? I was so happy, like tears in my eyes, happy that this was happening for women, and that there really seemed to be like a reason and a chance. And then I kind of just dove right back in.
It's crazy. It's almost like a bicycle. It's like you can go away for a little bit and you can get right back in.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's like people that are, that are like, oh, I'm retiring, whether it be from the independents or whatever. You're like, you never really retire from wrestling.
No,
like,
you don't.
Whether maybe you're just not in ring anymore and now you're doing other stuff, or you retire for a year and then you're like, oh, I got to get back in there because I'm seeing somebody else do it and now I need to do it too. You just can't help it.
Right. I mean, like with Glow, like my favorite was Lady Godiva.
Yes!
Yeah, Lady Godiva. Lady Godiva was my favorite back then, because that's when Jackie Stallone was on there.
Yes.
On Glow.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it was
so good on that.
Yeah, and I mean, it was different. It was different, and it was almost like it was really the alternative for wrestling, because you figure in the 80s, there was this kind of a weird period, because you had, of course, Wendy Richter, you had Leilani Kai, you had Judy Martin, you had Velvet McIntyre, you had Donna Cristanello, I think that's what her name was, and of course you had Moolah, and it was kind of going. And then of course you had Sherry, you had Medusa Michelli, who's Medusa, and it was starting to fade a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So it was like it was different. But I think now, to your point, because I've always been an advocate for women's wrestling. I always used to ask why women aren't in the main event. Why aren't they doing this? And someone told me flat out, they said because a lot of promoters only see TNA. That's all they see.
It's really interesting. And I have so many opinions about this. We're not going to go into all of them, but I think there's some of the things, and this was something that, was really hard, even being a full on like grown ass adult, that when I got into doing wrestling, that my mom was like, ugh, that's like kind of tawdry and kind of tacky, and just not having an understanding of it, because there is that. Now, like when it comes down to it, we are all man, women, whoever, whatever you are, whatever you choose to identify as, like we're all out there wrestling in our underwear, right?
Right.
So in some sense, man, woman, what have you, like it's gonna be a little sexual, right? Like you're gonna see some things because we're all out there wrestling. We're all out there picking each other up and throwing each other around, and we're all in underwear. So we're grabbing each other in our underwear. That's close to sex, right? It's getting there. It is, there is a natural, way to go down that path of thought. So I understand it and I see that. But, you also, want to invite people to look past that in a lot of different ways. Looking at the abilities of the people in there. I think that there is, and I think that Attitude Era time really tainted it. And there's so many girls that are wrestling now that are young girls that think that that's like the full history of wrestling. That like they don't know that, it goes all the way back, to the early 1900s.
Mildred
where
Burke,
we had some great
Mildred Burke and everything else.
Yeah. And it's like I said, it's, and again, going just back to human nature, like, ladies, we got a lot more of ourselves on the outside than guys do. They got theirs on the inside. So it's just obvious and it's right there and it's in your face. So it's hard not for your brain to go there, but it's on the stewards, it's on the promoters, it's on the teachers, it's on those people who are creating the wrestling community. Mm-hmm. It is our responsibility to make sure that we produce things, that we put out product that is good and respectable. And I think too, this goes back to how, going through, my own training experience is that, I think the way that, I think women are trained poorly in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's that they're given just kind of a pass and they're like, well, she's a girl. So like, if she doesn't do it as good as the guys, like, it's not a big deal. Just, this is fine. And that really puts you at a disadvantage because you need that challenge. You need to be told to, hey, toughen up, work harder, practice more so that you can get as good as everybody else, so that you're going to look just as good out there. And then the other thing too, is that being a male dominated field, it's very difficult for a lot of men most of these people, they're not trained, teaching is not something else that they do in their life for the most part. They just teach wrestling. So they don't understand the difference in between different learning styles, and that's why there's so many sink or swim, stories in wrestling where maybe, somebody went to one school and they couldn't hack it and they went to another one and they were a genius. They just had somebody tell them the way to do something in a way it made sense to them. And I think in a lot of ways, it's intimidating for women to be training. Most of the time, you're the only girl that's there. You might be training with guys that are a whole lot bigger and stronger than you, or a whole lot older or a whole lot younger than you. And that there's all these stories about things that go on in locker rooms. So you're already putting yourself in a scary place just by going to training, and you're brave and you're awesome just by taking that step to go to training. So for all those girls that like don't make it through training school, like I still give them kudos for giving it that try, because it is a very difficult, I've been in a lot of different parts of the entertainment industry, and it has certainly been like the most challenging as far as kind of that, that sex divide. But like I said, I think that, a lot of times women are all encouraged to do the same 5 moves. I think that there can be a wider, and you have people out there. For me, Gabby Gilbert was the first woman trainer that I had, the first person that made me feel comfortable in the ring. You've got people like Missy that are out there that are like really actively trying to change the culture for women, put together these really comprehensive shows, stack a card with these beautiful, competent matches that are just really inspiring and so exciting to see.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for shedding light. You know what I mean? That was going to segue to my next question, because I wanted to talk about your training. And you mentioned the name Gabby Gilbert. I got to give huge love, big hugs to Gabby Gilbert. She's one of my favorite people in the industry. One of the good ones. One of the true good ones in the business.
Yeah.
When was it that the light bulb went off and you said, I want to train to become a professional wrestler? How old were you, and what school, and what was the school that you did go to train?
So I, like I said, I had that divergent path when I was like 18, and I went into the world of makeup, and then I had a time in doing some music and doing some cosplay, and explored those careers for a little while, while also doing other professional stuff. And then wrestling kind of came and found me. And I was thinking to myself, I got invited to do some free seminar at or free range of training class or 101 at Jakara.
Okay.
And that was, I was like, well, I'll just do this as, I'll do some videos about it on my cosplay channel, and it'll just be, like it'll be promotion for them and it's promotion for me. And like when I got there, I was thinking, you know what? I'm just gonna I like the idea of being a manager. That seems appropriate for my age. I'm too old to do this. And then I got in the ring. I took a couple bumps, and I was hooked, hooked. There was no turning back at that point. I shattered my ankle really badly while I was there. And that took me out of commission for about a year. But I was, not to be daunted. I came back. When I came back, I actually went over I was doing a movie that had wrestling in it. And I happened to be filmed at the CZW school. So that was how I got involved with CZW. It was fully just fate that put me there on that day. And then they said, hey, come back tomorrow. You want to do this? And I was like, I'm still recovering from this surgery and this busted ankle. I don't really think that I can do this stuff. They said, come back tomorrow. Let's see what you can do. I came back the next day. Maven was actually there teaching class that day. So Maven taught a lot of the more shoot stuff, like shoot holds and all that, which I absolutely love. And I'm so happy that was part of my training. And I remember kind of seeing all the people there and be like, oh my God, this is CZW. Like, how am I ever going to survive? Not that I've always been kind of a rough and tumble girl, but you're like, this is deathmatch CZW. How am I going to survive? And is this going to be frustrating and all of that stuff? But like I said, I have to, give credit where credit is due. They were very patient with me. When I was starting there, I could just do some roles and a couple of other things. And, over time, I just healed and got better and better and better. And, that, like I said, when Gabby came on, I think I was already training there for maybe 6 or 9 months already. Once her and Jimmy came on, and I had the pleasure of being in Jimmy's last class, so that was being part of that before he passed, so that was definitely really, really wonderful to get all of the things that he imparted as well. But like I said, she was definitely the first person. There were so many days where I just felt like I'm not a visual learner. So a lot of times in your wrestling class, they'll be like, okay, you'll watch these 3 guys do it, or these 7 or these 12 or these 15 people do it, and then you go do it. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I could watch 105 people.
And that's okay. You know what I mean? Some people have the visual aspect, and some people just explain it to me.
Yes, I'm good for explaining, and I'm good for doing. So once I feel how it's supposed to feel on my own body, then I get it, and it gets in my muscle memory. So there were definitely, and I definitely will say, I remember some of Jimmy's classes where I was that person holding out the class where we had to do the clothesline drill out of the 4 people out of the corner. I don't know how many, it would take 100 clotheslines in a night. So there was we talk about paying your dues. I trained 4 nights a week. When I was not training, I was in the gym. So I also throughout that training journey, I also reached elite levels of strength. I got my best leg press was 3 reps of over 1,000 pounds. I really went hard. It was just, like I said, I felt so in love with not just the in-ring part of it, but obviously the characters, all of the characters, all of that stuff, all parts of it, like I said, ring crew, I love commentary, I love booking, and the creative part of putting that story together. I loved backstage interviews, all of it. From taking tickets at the door to picking up glass out of the turf at 2 a.m. I love every minute of it, every minute.
It's Dan, and I'm at the Monster Factory, as you know, and one thing Dan preaches a lot of times, and I put him over a lot on this podcast, because I learned a lot of things that I've learned about professional wrestling, I learned from him. And one of the things that he talks about a lot is being an asset to the industry, not doing just one thing, but being able to show a promoter, hey, I can do this, I can do this. So you're truly an asset, and you're not just, seen but not heard type thing. You know what I mean? You want to be able to show your value to the industry. Absolutely. Because guess what? In WWE and AEW or MLW or whichever company, they have production. They have, backstage interviewing. They have ring announcing. They have commentary. All these things. Now, those spots may not open up every now. They may not open up a lot, but what if somebody else? What if, like, for example, in WWE, Corey Graves was on paternity leave, and they needed people to fill in. You know what I mean? So those things happen. So I think making yourself an asset is super important, especially in this industry.
Absolutely. I got the opportunity to be, in the ring for a segment with Matt Cardona on MLW because I was just that person that said, I'd be happy to do whatever you want. We were doing a bunch of backstage stuff there. I've been working backstage for them for a little over a year now. And when we were there, they were like, hey, they're handing out assignments. We all, get there, we put the ring together at 9 a.m. And then, it's around 3 and we're getting ready to hand out show duty. So people are getting security detail, this, that, and the other thing. They said, do any of you ladies have a dress and heels? And I was like, I do, because I come prepared for anything. Right. So then they were like, oh, can you grab the gimmick? So people are taking off their entry gear and stuff. You grab it and, you walk to the back with, you walk to the back with it and you put it somewhere where they can get it, which seems like a pretty lowly job until you're sitting there ringside, which is another thing that's awesome. I got to sit ringside for the entire show. Mm-hmm. When you're working backstage, most of the time you miss most of the show.
You do.
So that was one thing that was just really cool about doing that. But the other thing was that, it's not a matter of like, oh, I'm doing this like lowly thing. Was like, I was sitting there and, at one point they just said, get some chairs and put them in the ring. And I was like, what? And like, did you mean me? And he was like, get some chairs and put them in the ring. And, I had got some chairs put in the ring. He's like, get in here. And it was all, they say that wrestling is premeditated and made up beforehand and scripted. None of this was scripted for me. I was totally taken by surprise. But like I said, I got to get in the ring, and then I had to take off Saint Laurent's shoe and sock for Mance Warner to come over because he was supposed to kiss it. So, and I got to do all of it in a gorgeous, and again, I was there at 9 a.m. carrying the boards and everything else, but then looking, put myself together, looking gorgeous ringside. Like I said, that was one of those things where just being able to be enthusiastic about doing those things that other people are like, well, I don't want that job. That's like, that's grunt work. I don't want to do that. It put me in a place where I had the opportunity to do something really cool.
This episode of the D-Lew Podcast is brought to you by Goalie Nutrition. As someone who's used Goalie for quite some time, I can tell you that they're not only very good, but they're very beneficial. My favorite are the Super Green Gummies. The Super Green Gummies are uniquely crafted with a spectrum of essential nutrients such as vitamins A, B12, folic acid, and thiamine. It supports a healthy liver function, healthy nervous and immune system, digestive health, a boost to your metabolism, and overall health and well-being. There are no artificial sweeteners, flavors, or colors from artificial sources. They're vegan-friendly, gluten-free, and gelatin-free. All loyal listeners of the D-Lew Podcast get a special 10% discount at checkout. Go to goalie.com, use promo code DLEW. That's goalie.com, use promo code DLEW.
Did you hear that? That's what an estimated 500 horsepower sounds like. Gon' give it to you. How about that? That's a premium Bang & Olufsen sound system with 18 speakers and a Biosonic sound experience.
Acura wins Daytona.
And that's our legacy. You ready to be a part of it? Gon' give it to you. Unlock the energy of the all-electric ZDX Type S. Order now at Acura.com.
Imagine bold, naturally aged Tillamook cheddar slices melting over a burger. Eating handfuls of thick-cut cheddar shreds straight from the bag. Taking a bite out of an irresistibly bold block of extra sharp cheddar cheese. We know you want to get back to streaming, but wasn't it nice to daydream about cheese for a bit? Tillamook Cheddar. Extraordinary dairy.
You like to watch new stuff, right? Well, go to Hulu and see what's new, because Hulu has new stuff all the time. Like Vanderpump Villa, the new docudrama starring Lisa Vanderpump, where first-class luxury meets world-class drama. A new season of The Kardashians starring The Kardashians, of course, and Grand Cayman, Secrets in Paradise, the sizzling new reality show set in the tropical Caribbean. It's all new and it's streaming now on Hulu.
Here you are, BPMs high, sweat dripping, body moving, tongue panting. You're working hard, real hard, and you're thirsty. You need vitamins, nutrients for peak performance and energy. And your plants do too. Aw, I mean, just look at the little guy. Water-soluble plant food from Miracle Grow is full of essential nutrients. Just a little scoop into your watering can and boom, instant feeding and bigger, more beautiful plants. It's kind of like a sports drink for your plants. You may have to suffer from heat, but your plants do not.
Wow. What's the old expression? Successful people will do what unsuccessful people won't do.
Indeed.
You're doing that. So what's the best? I know you've been around a lot of, good people, as we mentioned, Jimmy Ray, rest in peace. Gabby Gilbert, and there's been a lot of people you were around. What's the best advice anyone's ever given you in this industry?
That's a good question. I will not say the person that said this to me, but it is probably the best advice. They said, keep your mouth shut and keep your eyes and your ears open. And I will tell you, that was the best advice anybody gave me. As you can see, I'm pretty glib. I'm great at the talking thing, but I'm pretty, imagine when I'm not a one-on-one, when I'm in like a group situation, I'm a very shy human.
Same here.
I'm not great at starting conversation with strangers. If I don't know what to talk about, like I can't just start a conversation with you. I did a lot of time where I was, I did makeup or, hair for backstage or whatever was needed, whether I was cutting, inserts for DVDs, whatever needed to be done. But you're not just there cutting inserts for DVDs. You're there listening to the booking meeting. You're there listening to how much does it cost to put on a wrestling show. You're there getting all of the information that you need to know so that you can go ahead and apply it to your own situation. And I think a lot of people are so wrapped up. We're wrapped up now, obviously, in our phones all the time. We're wrapped up in ourselves. We're not paying attention to what's going on around us, and we're missing that gold, right? So like it's a trade. Wrestling is, for me, when I got into makeup, it was still a trade before YouTube and tutorials and things like that, where you had to learn this from another person. And there is still so much of that in wrestling that you can't learn but from watching, but from experiencing, and getting the chance to do that. Like I said, I took full advantage of it. And I just listened, I watched, I took note, and that it was from doing all of that I was able to, do as much as I'm doing now in the industry.
Yeah, and that's the name of the game. And and that same advice, it was explained to me. Mouth shut, eyes and ears open, and just listen. And a lot of time, and there's a lot of veterans in the industry that I've worked with before that I owe a huge gratitude for. But just being around them and just watching them break down a match and understand the psychology behind it and why they're doing it. What the fans are doing this, if they're responding this way, maybe we can go this way or we'll go that way. Professional wrestling is one of the most difficult things to grasp. I've never wrestled before, but just seeing it up close, and it's like, damn, like it's a lot of work. It really, really is.
It is. And I will say, we've talked about a myriad of different things that I've done, from theater, from, makeup, from, I did music and performance and stunts. And I thought I came into this business with like a good amount of experience that would prepare me for understanding what I was walking into. But I had no idea. No. There is so many layers to wrestling, and there are so many, like, just when you think you know something, like you might be like really great in the ring and you're getting around and you're a performer and you think you know what's up. Like, you don't know what's up. There's still like 10 curtains that are going to get pulled back on you that you're going to find out like as you go down the journey. It's a crazy, crazy thing. And it's not just the like how tough it is to understand. Like, you're like, okay, well, there's 10 names for any given move. And that could change when a new person adopts it and does something a little bit different. Like that was something that was like breaking my brain for, a little while when I first got in, is just trying to like memorize all of these things, because I'm a person that knows like a million song lyrics. So I thought I had to memorize like every single move when I first started studying.
Right.
And I remember like being on the train on the way to work and like opening up Wikipedia on my phone and having my notebook and just writing down all of these different moves. I was really approaching it in a weird way. But like I said, it is so much bigger than what it appears like on the surface. And again, part of me loves that. Like refereeing was something that I have also done a ton of. And again, it's just that like every part of it, like I love the concept of a referee in wrestling, because you are somebody that is controlling the action, but you're also oftentimes like very invisible. They always say like, if you don't notice the ref, then they're a good ref. But right. I can't tell you how many like referees that I know that have saved a show or have saved a match, or have made it possible, have turned a bad match into a good match because they did the right thing as a referee, or saved somebody from serious injury because they were a good referee. You don't, that's the wonderful magic of professional wrestling, is that when you're watching it, you are watching the finished product. You're not seeing all of those wheels turning and all of those moving pieces.
Yeah, and I mean, shout out to every referee that's out there that's killing it, whether you're on the indies or whether you're on TV. So let's talk about some of the promotions you've worked for or you work for currently. We'll talk about Belle to Belle in a little bit. What were some of the promotions you've worked for, and some of the promoters that you worked for as well?
So I worked for Belle to Belle. I worked for CZW, WSU, and Bloodstorm Pro, and then I have coming up so many new ones that I am excited to go work for. Also BST up in Connecticut. They're awesome. I'm like, where do I start? I would say I got probably my start doing, and again, I have a ton of theater and on-screen experience, doing all kinds of different interviews. I had started even doing, I was doing my own little interviews when I was doing my cosplay stuff. I had gotten a Thunder Rosa and Holodead interview way back when.
Wow.
Before, I want to say this was like eight years ago, maybe. I got a little clippy interview with them, which was fun. We also did some really silly kind of videos with them too, just some avant-garde cosplay stuff. That was really fun. But like I said, that was even like pre, working for stuff. That's when I was like, I really like meeting them. I was like, no, I got to get into this business. I got to do some stuff. But yeah, I got my first like kind of throw into it was, again, like for me, and I'm never in the right place at the right time, but I'm always in the wrong. Like I'm like, when everything's going wrong, I'm always that person that can jump in and save the day. So it never ends up being like to my own success, but I'm typically that person that's like, like I said, for the MLW, they're like, hey, does somebody have a dress and heels? I think there was a day that I was just working ring crew at CZW, as a trainee, and the person who was supposed to do backstage interviews wasn't able to make it. And they said, hey, can you, put on a nice dress and look like a lady? I said, sure. And I jumped right in. They like threw me in there, and just, I'm really one of those people. I think in my mind all the time, I'm not a good improviser. But I work in that capacity really, really well. I don't know if it's my experience, like I said, doing professionally. I'm in HR, so I'm interviewing people all the time. So I don't know, that's just like part of my soul now, but, working with them, that was a lot of fun. It was my, home promotion at the time. So it was super easy. In that way, I felt very comfortable there, but it was also very intimidating because it was really like my first time I was like, oh, I better get this right. Right. So I got the chance to do that. Working with Bloodstorm Pro has been great. I do for them production, booking, just about everything there, do interviews for them as well. We're always kind of doing that on the street sort of interview style. I do want to start doing more podcast stuff for them, but that's, everything is just having the time to squeeze it in there. But they've been a really great promotion to work with, along with Belle to Belle and BST. I would say like all of those promotions, what's really impressive to me with them is like the amount of organization is very different than a lot of the other stuff that you'll find on the indies. So for instance, like even though I didn't know that I was going to be on commentary until like an hour before I got to Belle, Missy had a whole folder put together for us with information on each of the performers. So even though I knew most of them, which was, and again, so great to see everybody in the ring there. Even though I knew most of them, having that kind of organization and information, a lot of times you'll get to a show on the indies and like, man, it's just go out there and have a good show, guys, and figure it out. So it's really, really nice to have these shows that are professional. The production at BST is just top notch. All of their organization and their equipment and the way that they put everything together, it's an absolute pleasure to work for them. And they are all just, certainly the most professional. But I would say like all of these guys coming up, I also have, there's another Belle to Belle without the E's that is up in Maine that I'm getting the chance to work for coming up soon. And then again, too, just doing some of the backstage and production stuff at MLW. That to me, like I took so much from that because with them, the way they do their shows is super interesting. And when we just did the one in New York, I couldn't believe because of the tight space that we were working in that everything happened the way that it was supposed to happen. Because they'll do their taping and then their taping has to be done at a particular time because then they go live and then they do their whole live show. And then after that, they do a little bit more taping. So timing is everything and everybody's got to be where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. So there's a lot of running around. There's a lot of like yelling and stressful moments and stuff like that. But it's just like this buzz of activity. And like I said, I'm super fascinated by people and like systems of people and how people work together and making that like better and more efficient. And I took a lot from all of that stuff at MLW and have been able to go back and apply it at places like Bloodstorm Pro, where we work with IWTV there. So we're also, we're live when we're there. And doing that is great too. Like, again, like just being able to provide them with notes and saying like, hey, we want to see, this during this match. We want to make sure that you get in and get that facial expression, like, when this is going on or, and that's, we know we have a death match thing happening. Like, make sure you get this angle on it, when they're, when it's time for it to go. That kind of thing. It's just great getting that kind of, like I said, to me, the like seeing it all come together and work. I think one of the things that when I started really going out on the indies and seeing stuff coming from a theater background and a film background and stuff like that, I'm not to disparage anyone because it is so hard to put on a show. It is so much work to put on even the worst show. That when, I got out and I was like at these shows, I'm like, why is this not good? This could be, like the wrestling was good, but like the rest of everything just was like ramshackle kind of like thrown together. I'm like, this could be so much better. But then once I got in, I really understood why, it's a time thing. It's a budget thing. It's a people thing. It's a travel thing. Like there's so many uncontrollable things. To me, the thing you got to do is you got to control what you can control. So if you can be organized in a certain facet, just like, Missy having the stuff that she had prepared, just something as simple as like a board with times on it, stuff like that, that those little things can make a big, huge difference in how well your show ends up looking at the end. But not only that, the experience that the performers and the workers are having. And to me, that's, again, coming from that HR background, super important to me that people are having a good experience at a show. So something like an MLW or a Bloodstorm Pro, where I am really involved in that backstage experience, making sure that people have what they need and that it's comfortable for them to get where they need to get when they need to get there. To me, the number one thing that is like where people like will leave a job or they don't like their job or they're dissatisfied is when they don't have the tools that they need to do their job. So again, like finding myself being passionate about props, all these many, many years later, when that was like the first place that I started at, it's kind of like, it really kind of like rings true that like, kind of like I said, just being in service of people that you're working with and not just thinking about like the thing that you have to do or like, am I going to get paid attention to? I can't tell you how many, people I'll see, they'll come there and they're like, well, I'm a worker. I'm not a student anymore. So I'm just going to like hang out back here and look cool. And it's like, you're not helping the business. Like you're not looking like a star because, it's like I show up, I look like this all day. And when we go home at 12, after we're done loading the ring back in, I still look like this and I still look like a star. You can do it too.
Well, I mean, wow. It's just some gems you're dropping right now. No pun intended and pun not intended. But we brought it up, and obviously, so Belle to Belle, obviously, Missy Sampson's promotion. Shout out to Missy, and she was a guest on the show. You can check it out in the archives on the D-Lew Podcast.com. What was the process of you being picked as one of the talents, for the show as far as backstage interviewing, and then obviously filling in for commentary, and talk about the first show and how everything went. If you can just talk about it a little bit.
So it was interesting. So I recently had a little bit of an injury. So I am, kind of, and like I said, I'm pursuing more of those kind of roundabout things, more so than pursuing the in-ring aspect for me. So I, was trying to kind of go gung-ho on that. And I saw that she had the show. I saw it pop up. And, I had the opportunity to train with Missy a number of times over at Monster Factory. She has always been like really rah-rahing me and very supportive. And again, like finding anybody supportive in this business is like gold, and you hold on really tight when you find them. And then we had, some connection there. So I reached out and I said, hey, I'm available for all these things. And she had everything covered because Missy is Missy and she is so organized. Right. So she didn't really necessarily need me, but she made space for me. And that was like, touched me in such a way I can't explain to you. Because again, for me, I'm one of those people that does that in my professional life. If I find a great candidate that is going to help my organization, I will find, we create positions for the right people. And I've so rarely in my life had somebody do that for me. And so I can't tell you how much it meant to me when she, I was like, hey, I want to be part of this. And she said, well, let's find you something to do. So we were going to do backstage interviews, and I said to her, I was like, listen, I can come and I can announce, I can do commentary, I can backstage interview, I can sing in the Star Spangled Banner if you want, whatever you want, I can do it. And so like she said, she found that space for me. We had all that planned out. And then a commentator ended up being sick and in the hospital. So she, I was messaging her because I was coming off of a crazy weekend. I had MLW Thursday in Queens, and then I was up in Connecticut at BST on Friday. And then I was coming back down and I was like, oh, I was running late. And so I'm messaging, and I hate being late for things. So I'm messaging her, letting her know I'm going to run a little late. And she's like, you got to get here by 1. We're having the meeting. And guess what? You're doing commentary. So, and I have done commentary on matches before. I've never done a full show in that way. So that was because it was such a supportive environment that like there was no way you could feel intimidated in that building that day. The vibe there was just something else. Like it was, like I said, it was so incredible, so inspiring. Having Heidi Lee Morgan in our dressing room, like what? She was in our dressing room. She gave the most incredible, inspirational speech to us back there. And again, just like ringing that same tune of like help each other, lift each other up, support each other, be there for one another, because that's the only way that we're all going to move forward. That was a message that she had for our locker room. And like, I can't sing that loud enough or enough times. That's really what I want for everyone. And that's what I really saw happened that day. There were women in the ring of all different ages, sizes, backgrounds, all different experience levels that were there. And you saw this wonderful show put on. Like the card was put together really well. The show flowed beautifully. It was so exciting to be there in that seat and witness what really, like, the house was packed. It really, it felt like a moment of history. It absolutely did.
Yeah, I was very, very happy because I unfortunately I wasn't able to attend, but I did see some of the still shots on social media, and I was beyond happy for everyone that was on the card. That I feel it was way overdue for all women's promotion to be ran by a woman, and for all women to feel safe, secure, and be able to hone their craft in a really, really, really safe environment. I think that's super important. And I hope that there's more all women's promotions that are popping around, you know what I mean, around the country, you know what I mean? And because the possibilities are endless, because you're talking about potential super cards down the line. I mean, once this is off the ground, I could manifest that. I could see that happening, because when you're dealing with the right people, when the right people are in position to make things work the way that it's supposed to work, everything's going to flourish from there. That's how it is.
It absolutely is. And like I said, to me, it felt, like all of those things, like I said, when I came into this industry and I came into the indies and I was like, why is this so crappy? Like, this was the opposite of it. The production was there, like the hands to help were there, that everyone was enthusiastic. And I think too, in a lot of the places where I've seen all women shows that were, I've been on women's shows that were run by women, but they weren't people like Missy that were in the industry for 20 years, or for over almost 30 years now. They weren't people that had an understanding of kind of the struggle that women go through in wrestling and what that journey feels like. But Missy understands that a lot better. And she also just understood, like I was saying, that perception and kind of how to change that perception. The way that the show was booked, the matches in particular that were put together were very smartly put together in a way that was able to showcase everybody's talents. Whereas a lot of women's shows, like you said, either women's matches on the show because a promoter feels obligated to put a women's match on the show because we've got to check the diversity boxes, or it's for the TNA. It's, they always call them a popcorn match, and you get it either before intermission or after intermission. So it's like people are either like leaving or they're coming back, and they're not going to catch the whole match. And it's like, wow, that's super disparaging. But again, it's facts. It's whatever it is, what it is. We're here to change the game. We're here to do something a little bit different. So I was so proud to be part of something that didn't look like that, feel like that, sound like that, anything like that. It was really, truly respectful of women's wrestling and that craft. And I'm so excited to see what happens. And for me, sitting in that commentary, again, like just doing so much stuff backstage for the past many years, not, working really hard, but not getting to see a show until you go back and you watch it on TV. Sitting in the commentary booth is like the most awesome place to watch a show. Because like you get so, that person in you, like I said, I'm a little shy, so I'm not always the person that's going to like jump up and scream if something exciting happens. But when you're in commentary, like it's your job to get excited about it. So you can just like let it all out. And it was really fun.
Yeah, because you are truly the voice of you're an extension of what's going on in the ring to communicate to the viewer. That's super important. And I always equate professional wrestling to like this big puzzle. There's missing pieces. You know what I mean?
I say the same. So that's what I talk when I tell people my experience learning wrestling. It was like somebody had a big gallon bag of puzzle pieces, and it's for 5 different puzzles, and you don't have the picture, and they dump it out on the table and tell you figure it out.
Yep, seriously, that's the best. That's the best description that was explained. That's perfect. So you have so many different life experiences. Obviously live stunt shows, acting and stunts in movies. So which live shows and which movies have you been in?
So I did the Great Adventure shows. Of course, I did their Fright Fest too. That was always fun. I got to do the makeup stuff for that, as well as doing some performance stuff for it. And then the Lethal Weapon Stunt show, I got to do that for a few years, which was on the water, which was absolutely wild. There's a bunch of just like, again, like at that indie level in the movies. So most of the movies that you've never heard of, and no one's ever heard of them, and a lot of them got lost to time. But I think there Midnight Mass was one of them that I did some stunt work on. That it's all that like direct to DVD stuff, and that was a lot of fun. I certainly got to do more accredited stuff when I was doing makeup than I did when I was doing this stunt work.
Got it. And music. Now you have over 100 songs written. So talk about, because again, I'm a recording artist too. So we could talk about some stuff offline. But what are some of the genres that you've toured around in, that you've actually written, and talk about your songs you've written a little bit.
So I came from a musical family. I told you they were hippies. So my dad was actually a blues drummer he would go on the road. He was like a journeyman drummer. He played for Chubby Checker, the Platters, like a couple of other like bands that he got to were his more famous bands. And then he played a lot of blues and rock and roll. So there was always band practice was always happening in my house, whether I wanted it to be or not. I remember being in like first and second grade and trying to fall asleep. But I'm like, oh my God, is this ever going to end? Right. But it became, it was part of our life. And it was awesome. But that was, I tried getting into drums when I was around I think I was like 9 or 10 when I tried to learn. I didn't have it. I might now, but I think I was at that really awkward stage. And I didn't have it. So I started, I remember getting caught a couple of times singing in my room by myself with like headphones on, and then like my mom opens the door and I would get like real embarrassed, and she's like, no, it's good, it sounds good, like and I learned how to play guitar, and I was in a high school band, like all through high school I was in bands. And we would play like at the Stone Pony on local night and stuff like that. It was very cute. I actually have I still have a poster from our flyer from when I was in one of those bands, and I look at it now and I'm like, wow, I haven't changed all that much. But so that was primarily rock, really just like punk rock and rock music. Mm-hmm. And then I went into a little bit more of the metal genre, which I'm still a big fan of metal today. I do have a pretty good scream on me, but I don't have any of that stuff recorded because that was very, very early on, and getting things recorded at that time was tough. Like it was, you were lucky if you had a 4-track or an 8-track to record stuff on. And then later on, I left, came back to it. Then I was doing like industrial stuff, industrial and kind of more dancing music. Then I got into super experimental, esoteric kind of stuff that was like way, way out there. And then, I came, and that stuff, like, I loved because it was really different, like trippy feeling, very, very experimental and very sensory. But I was one of the things that I was always frustrated about was that, like, I am a real intense lyricist, and I always felt like you never got to hear the story I was telling or the words that I was saying because I was either screaming it or the music was so loud, you really weren't hearing what was going on. So that eventually this was it's a crazy story how it happened, but it was my 30th birthday. We went to North Bowl in Philly, and we were just chilling and having like a very chill adult evening. And it was the end of the night, and we see some people walking into the club by my friend's house, and they're like, what are you guys doing? And we're like, I don't know, it's the end of the night. And they're like, it's the beginning of the night. Come on. We go in, it is a hip hop open mic night in Philly, and my one brother was there with me. I had my CD, one of my CDs, and I had a song that was way more lyrical and a little bit on the hip hop side, but still like more on the electronic side. He's like, do it. I'm like, no, this crowd's gonna hate me, no. And I did it, and the crowd loved it, and that spurred a whole bunch of new songs. So that's most of the stuff that you can still hear of mine that's out there is recorded, that and some of the experimental stuff that was going on right before that. So I still have my Reverb Nation page up, and all of my songs are free for download because I just love to do it. And it's not something that I could ever see charging anybody any money for. So yeah. And like I said, I'm just very, writing was the very first thing that I did. So I have always been a lover of writing and the written word. And that was a way, like, getting, into that hip hop genre, which was music that I loved, but was never something that I saw myself doing. Was really a way that I was able to get a creative expression that I always died for and wanted. So it was very, very satisfying. And I really still listen to and enjoy those songs from that era, still on a regular basis.
That's incredible. And I mean, I love hearing the stories of how something it can start from nothing and then it just becomes, you know what I mean?
I was always in my life, it wasn't until I would say that I got into my 30s that I definitely say my life started in my 30s, even though I did a bunch of stuff before then. I was just kind of walking through it. When I got into my 30s, I finally started, when the door was open, grab that knob and walk right through it. I'm still very shy to do that. I'm still always well, is that for me? Maybe that door is for somebody. Maybe that's for that other person. That couldn't be. That's not for me. That's not my opportunity. I still feel that way. I'll always feel that way. But I've started to get a little bit better at it, and taking those chances, taking those wild moments, or like I said, just in that moment at MLW when they were grab the chairs and throw them in the ring and get in here. You know what? And then there I was in the ring with Matt Cardona, crazy town.
Wow. So as we begin to wind down, what are your short-term goals and what are your long-term goals?
Short-term goals is to keep getting myself out there, keep interviewing people, get around to as many of the indies as I can, and kind of spread this energy that I have, this positivity, and get out there and really get to know everyone out there. Long-term goals, I really want to build what we're doing at Bloodstorm Pro. I really believe in what we're doing there. Certainly also want to continue to be part of Belle to Belle, and really kind of get that, if I can be a part of helping women's wrestling to be more respected, to be better, to get in a better place, I would be a happy, happy woman. And certainly, for me, a big goal is trying to get a more permanent spot at MLW. I've been a huge fan of theirs, excuse me, since they came back. And I've watched them, pretty consistently since they came back. And then getting the chance to get back there, my only regret is that I wish that I had done it sooner. I had the opportunity to, but I was kind of told oh, don't do that. Because again, you want to be, if you want to be a wrestler, you shouldn't be trying to put yourself backstage. Totally untrue, everyone. Don't listen to anyone. Go be helpful. But yeah, for me, my long term is just to keep doing what I'm doing. I definitely want to get back in the ring. I'd like to have a few matches. That's about it. It's just to keep on keeping on and enjoy every moment while we're here and we have the ability to enjoy it.
Yeah. And where can people find you on social media?
I'm on Instagram and I'm on Threads, Jem Martel. That's Jem with an M. And it's Martel, like Sherry, because I love her so much. But yeah, Instagram is generally where you'll find me hanging out. And that's pretty much it for now. I should probably get a little bit more social media going, but I had the social media going and it got hacked. I think it's almost 2 years ago now, or a year and a half ago. Wow. So I had to kind of start building all over again, which is tough, but it's it's the Wild West out there. I'm just lucky to be with the feds that I am working with. They'll keep putting me out there, I hope, and I'll keep doing them a service. And I want wrestling to come back into being something that people do on a more regular basis again. I think it's really attendance is down in the indies overall. The pandemic didn't help that any. I feel like we're still in recovery from that. I want to, people need to get out. We need human interaction. We need wrestling. Wrestling is what, the same reason that people went to the Coliseum to see the gladiators. that's what we're doing when we go to see wrestling. Like, it's part of what we need as humans. We like to watch combat. So like, get out there, do it. It's a good time. You get to yell and scream and like get everything out of your system, and just enjoy it. Like, come on out and enjoy some independent wrestling, people.
Absolutely. Well, Jem, like I said, it's been an honor and a privilege to have you on, the D-Lew Podcast. I'm hopeful to get out to Belle, at the next show, I believe is in May. And
yes, we got May 18th for that. And then we've got May 25th for Bloodstorm Pro. If you can make it out to either one of them, definitely please, everybody, come on out. That's they're both in South Jersey, Paulsboro and Williamstown. They're easy to get to. They're not too expensive. They're a great time. If you're looking for family friendly, hit up Belle to Belle. If you want something a little bit more adult, head on over to Bloodstorm Pro.
Well, thank you very much. And we'll definitely be talking soon.
Well, that does it for this week's edition of the D-Lew Podcast. Once again, I want to thank Jem Martel for stopping by and telling us all she has going on and giving us a peek, behind the curtain, so to speak, in regards to her life, early years, before she got into the world of professional wrestling. And I wish her all the best. And I know that our careers will cross paths sooner than later. Also, guys, subscribe to the show, no matter which platform that you're listening to it on. Subscribe and share. It doesn't cost you a thing. Subscribe and share. And that's how we grow. Also, once again, I want to remind you all that my merchandise store for Siete music and for Pro Wrestling Tees is open. So to get all Siete music, my parent company, all the official merchandise, you can go to shop.derricklewis.com. My Pro Wrestling Tees store, you can just go pwt.derricklewis.com. Stream my single Espacion with Angie Stars on all platforms. The music video can be seen on Apple Music, Tidal, the Vivo app, and YouTube as well. All my social media, again, is at The Real DT with the exception of Facebook, which is Derrick T. Lewis official page. And I want to remind you all, this Saturday, you can see me at the world famous Monster Factory 4. Monster Factory on 11. Tickets are on sale now at monsterfactory.org. Bell time is at 4 p.m. But again, you can get your tickets the day of the show. Just come up and just say you want to see some action. You know what I mean? Action with the future stars of the world of professional wrestling. Well, I'm going to get out of here, and as I always say, no matter what it is you do in life, always remember to make it count. See you next time.
Did you hear that? That's what an estimated 500 horsepower sounds like. Next, go give it to you. How about that? That's a premium Bang & Olufsen sound system with 18 speakers and a Biosonic sound experience.
Wins Daytona.
And that's our legacy. You ready to be a part of it? Let's go, give it to you. Unlock the energy of the all-electric ZDX Type S. Order now at Acura.com.